What's up, folks? What's going on? This is CEO of MF Seasons and Sauces. And if you're not doing nothing on Sundays at 6 p.m., you gotta check out The Man Cave. I approve this message. I'm on my way. Check them out every Sunday, 6 p.m. The Man Cave. Yeah.
I'ma see if you gonna tell him. He coming in right now.
I let him know what's
and then
up.
when cause he ain't going nowhere. That's my son. That's my only son.
At some point, he got to go.
Never.
Do mothers have the power to stifle their son's manhood?
No time.
At some point, he
Never
got
no time. Never no time.
At what point does a mother's love become toxic?
No, you tell me. We're talking about you grown and you gotta go somewhere. I told him, you my only son, you ain't going no damn where. You go when you get ready.
In what ways can a mother make it hard for her son's marriage? Not only in his future relationships, but in her own.
That's what I be wanting to walk through the house naked sometime, and there you go. So, I mean, what?
No, if anything, you can go, not him. How about that?
I want to pay all the fucking bills in here. How the you gonna tell me where I can go?
The thing is, like, why do I gotta this is my mama's house? Like, why do I gotta leave my mama's house?
Period.
Man, you damn near 40 years old. Damn near it's time to go. I mean, at what point?
These questions and many more will be answered by today's guest, Mrs. Madonna Shannon. In addition to being a mother herself, Madonna has a full resume of experience ranging from the military to finance. She's also the founder of the initiative God Inspiring Black Men. Through this and other initiatives, Madonna challenges moms to emotionally divorce their sons, freeing them to become husbands, attain favor with God, and build legacy through covenant. She fearlessly calls out how Christian women often substitute their unmet emotional needs with their sons, unintentionally crippling their growth. Her message confronts the disparity in black marital stats and exposes lies that keep black men bound. Are you ready to get into it? I am. Please welcome to the show Air Force veteran, corporate trainer, and financial strategist, Mrs. Madonna Shannon. Welcome to the Man Cave, Miss Madonna Shannon.
Hello, I love that intro. It was amazing.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank
it
you,
was
ma'am.
Amazing. Not because I'm on it, but just I love that video. I got caught up in that.
Oh, really? Yeah,
that
that was something that I remember doing a previous show on, and it fits here so well. So, introducing Miss Madonna Shannon. She comes with a wealth of information. She has experienced a lot of information gathering from military to real estate to financial planning and business services and consultation. And one of the things that struck me about you is that you have another initiative called God Inspiring Black Men, which we're going to get into in a minute. That's going to be the beef. But I want to get into some of the other things that you have. So I see that you have Madonna Shannon Business Services and Consulting. What does that entail?
So I teach people AI mastery and walk them through how to leverage their business using the power of AI. That's the wave of the future. I do. And so I teach multiple classes on how to leverage AI, all different components to grow your business, scale your business, and monetize your business.
Wow. Okay. Because I just used AI for a video that I did.
Okay.
And to me, it's a little creepy because I'm from the old school.
Yeah.
you do the thing yourself. I'm not used to. I'm not sure how you do it in business, but in the graphic world,
Yeah.
it just makes everything too easy. And so
It does. But that's the good part, right? Because you want to spend more of your time making money than tapping into all those creative tools that you have to figure out. So AI makes all of that easy.
Okay, and it does, but it's still kind of scary. Okay, but the other things that I was interested in is that you have a list of initiatives that help the Black community.
I
And
do.
that's really what drew me in. And
Okay.
Also, one of the initiatives is the Village Initiative.
Yes.
What is that about?
So a few years ago, and not a few, I don't want to age myself, but some of my girlfriends and I, we got together because we were all single parents, mothers of sons.
Mhm.
And we were all paying, I was paying $1,200. My other girlfriend was paying $900. My other girlfriend was paying $800 for rent. And we weren't getting ahead. We were like in this rat race. We were all in the military. And I said, hey, let's all move to Mississippi. Let's get a house together and let's raise our kids together. We started a nonprofit called the Regeneration Project, which is how the Village Initiative evolved. And we pooled our resources to help one another raise our boys so that they never had to come home to an empty house. They always had a home cooked meal, someone to help with homework, and someone just to tell them you're amazing. And so from that, I wish I could say it was super successful. We did it for about 3 years, but I tell people the reason why I enacted it now again is number one, we look at the sign of the times. Everybody needs help. And so we created the blueprint. The one thing we did not do is we did not have a contract so that when our desire to help fell through, we had some foundation to follow on that says these are the rules and this is what you have to do. So that's what I created with the Village Initiative. Let's pull our resources, let's work together, let's grow our families and communities so that we can have more like some of the other communities do.
Yeah, and that's sorely lacking in the Black community, because a lot of the Black community is like out for number one.
Absolutely.
And so we don't necessarily have to live together, but we can pool resources together to become like one big fist instead of 5 fingers.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So,
and as a real estate agent, I see that all the time. My Caucasian clients, they're buying one big house, they're pooling their resources, they're growing. We were doing that back in 2010, but they're doing it now, and especially after COVID. But my African American clients and my Hispanic clients, they're buying these big houses, might be 2 people in a 5-bedroom, 3,000 square foot house, but yet they have family members who are struggling. And so it's about teaching people how to do more together and to raise a village, because it takes a village.
Yes, it does. It does. That's true. So another initiative that you had or have is called They Lied About Us.
Yes.
Tell me what that's about.
So that's a TikTok channel that I created. It's part of the God Aspiring Black Men, and it's just to dispel some of the myths. So if you go to the TikTok channel, it's God Aspiring Black Men. You'll see where I post like whatever lie they've said about us, like Black men don't raise their children,
Wow.
or Black men don't, or Black men are not educated, Black men don't care about their community. And so I'll put that information up, and then I'll dispel it with the truth about what really goes on in our communities, those stories that you don't hear or see because they're not in the media.
Yes. We did a show on this too, about dispelling the stereotypes of Black men.
Yeah.
And it's not that we are pushing the agenda. Some Black men are, but it's that we're dealing with what was put on us, the stigma that was put on us.
Absolutely.
And so I give you an example. In China and Japan, they have this toothpaste called Darlie, DARLIE, and it's a silhouette of a man with a top hat smiling. But if you go back to the early 40s, it was called Darkie, and it had a smiling Black man.
That's right.
Blackface, and they still sell it, and it's still owned by Colgate and Palmolive. But they don't sell it in America because of the stigma here. but they
Right.
still sell it in Japan and China.
Absolutely. And so when you think about that, I didn't say it was a stereotype, because a stereotype is just misinformation. But I said they lied on us, because that makes it more personal, right?
Yes.
That when someone says a stereotype, it could be a misconception. But when you
Mhm.
say they lied, that means I'm deliberately telling an untruth.
Yes.
And so I wanted to make sure that people understand they are deliberately lying
Mhm.
about Black men.
Mhm.
And I think it's important that we as Black women and us as a community of Black people
Mhm.
rally together to dispel those myths with our actions.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. EW, we got we'll just put comments as we go. EW says, "Hi, our history does show more collectivism. We've only recently started becoming more individualistic. Remember people mortgaged their house to help the freedom riders." Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember that. Yeah. But like today though, we always talk about that younger generation that's not like us.
that's right.
And it's like you gotta teach them, because I do know a lot of, but let's get to the real meat. This is what I'm coming
Okay.
for right here.
Okay.
Your other initiative is called God Aspiring Black Men. And before I give you the barrage of questions that I have,
Okay.
tell me about God Aspiring Black Men and how that came to be.
So it started off as good ass Black men, right? Because
It started off as
I
well.
good ass Black men.
Okay.
Okay, that's what it started as, right? Because in our kitchens, when my aunts and my mama would talk to me, they were always like, "Madonna, when are you gonna find a good ass Black man?" And I was just like, "I'm looking for one. I can't find him."
Mhm.
And so then the question came up, what is good?
Mhm.
But as a Christian, people were turned off by me saying that. So, I said, most people are aspiring to be more godlike. And I'm not talking about, the Black Jews or the Hebrews, and nothing against them.
Mhm.
I just felt like even if you're talking about the God in us, most people are looking for the God in us. So it transformed from good ass Black men to God aspiring Black men. And it was all set to elevate the Black man in our community, not from, let me tell you how to be a Black man. I raise sons, but I'm not a man.
Mhm.
But from the standpoint of, I'm a Black mom, and I wish somebody had trained some of the men that I dated to
Yeah.
be a certain way. And so it's to inspire as a collective the thought process of what good really is. Because sometimes we get that confused, that just because you're a good provider, that makes you good. That's not it.
Right.
If you have a relationship with God, that makes you good. We see all the turmoil in the church. That's not it. But it's a collective body of different things that makes all of us good. And so now we're this whole channel, that whole TikTok channel, is looking for the good in Black men who are aspiring to be more godlike.
Wow. See, that's a tremendous thing, and it's a huge undertaking, because
It is.
you have to get these young guys to buy into that. I have so many examples, but let me ask this: the
Okay.
thing that tends to, and this is where I'm going to focus, the thing that tends to make a lot of Black men be dependent, be less than what they should be, is their own mamas.
Yeah.
So tell me how mamas can mess up their babies.
Oh my gosh. So, I love Tupac. I love Tupac. I know I shouldn't say that because I'm a Christian, but he was very deep. And I was listening to that song, Dear Mama, a little bit after I had made GABM, right? Because we know what it started out as. And he said, even though you were a crack fiend, mama, you were always a Black queen, mama.
Yeah.
And so it got me to thinking, like, I don't ever want my kid to give me props if I'm not doing right. And as I started looking at that and looking at other Black moms and women that I know who cripple their boys, and they turn into men who cannot function. But then I realized it goes even deeper than that. I recognize as a single parent, I'm grateful that I had a village to help mitigate some of that, right?
Yeah.
I told you about my girlfriends that I moved in with. So we kind of checked one another, which sometimes you don't see strong Black women being checked by other strong Black women because they value the friendship more than authenticity.
Yes.
But I saw that it's not just that they were crippling their sons from an emotional standpoint. They were having those sons replace the men in their lives. They put responsibility on them that no young boy should have. So then when those boys go into relationships, they can't even function because their mother is their superhero.
Yep.
Their mother is their guide. Their mother is the voice that they can't even do what the Bible says, which for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. They can't even do that because their mother is their wife.
Yes.
And I have to say, you know, it was a wake-up call for me about 7 years ago. I have 3 sons, 2 are biological, 1 I inherited, and his mama just literally left him on my doorstep, and he became a part of our family at the age of 15. But you know, my son started dating a young lady, and he knows the story. We've talked about this, and she and I have reconciled since then. But about 7 years ago, I was putting him in a position where he had to choose. And you know, one day he was like, "Mom, I love you, but this is who I'm going to be with. And if you can't deal with it, then I'm not dealing with you." And so my son and I went through a divorce. For a year, we did not talk. And when I say we didn't talk, I wasn't there for the birth of my grandchildren. You know, my grandson, I wasn't there to support him through some things that he was going through. And during that time, he actually reconciled with his father.
Okay.
Because they didn't have a really great relationship before then. And let me just stop and say this sometimes. Sometimes when a woman doesn't have a man consistently in her life and her son becomes her husband, that relationship even taints the relationship with their fathers. And so when I started looking at all of this and saying, hey, I'm a culprit, and I know a lot of other women who are the same way, it's time that we have honest conversations to say, this is unacceptable.
Yes. Yes.
This is unacceptable.
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about, but from a father's point of view, I was married and we were a blended family. So I married into a 16-year-old.
Oh, wow.
Would manipulate his mom every chance he got.
Yeah.
And so when he met me, he ran into a brick wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was 16 before. I know what you're doing. But one day he called his mother the B word, and I snapped and I went off. And so she went bananas. No, because in their culture, you just don't grab nobody and none of that. But that's exactly what he needed. And she knew it wasn't like he did something wrong. And then I snapped. No, I gave him a lot of rope. But when I got to the end of the rope, and which is calling my wife a B, I could eat. If
that's
I stood there, you are in charge if I stand there. But if I beat you down, you know I'm in charge. But she continued to get him out of trouble, give him money, give him things that, you know, it's kind of like Jungle Fever when Ruby Dee was always giving money to Samuel Jackson, the crackhead.
Yeah.
And the father's like, I need you to stop doing that.
That's right.
You know, and let this boy grow up. But what do you say to a mom who's helicoptering her mothering just won't stop?
You need to say exactly what I just said. What I had to say to myself is that it's time for you to understand that that's not your husband. You can't raise your son to be your husband. And, you know, when you think about that, you think about, oh, that's incestuous. No, I'm not talking about perverted things like that, right? I'm talking about the fact that I'm going to groom you to be softer and nurturing because I wish I had somebody softer and nurturing in my life, right? That's not their job. And then when they get older, even if they're halfway functional, then every time the mother calls and says, I need, then you don't go talk to your wife because you're a unit. Now you're just sending your mother whatever. And now that dysfunction is prevalent in both relationships on both sides. You have a wife who's saying, I'm your wife. And you have a mother saying, I brought you in this world. I can take you out. And what you have is a system that negates manhood.
Exactly.
And if that is not fixed, then we're going to continue to have these homes, these broken homes, which some of it is by design, right? We can go into the welfare system and what that did and perpetuated in the Black family, and introduced the prison system, and the crack epidemic, all of these things. We can go into all of that, but I think the first line of defense is for a woman to really look at how is she hurting her son by limiting the relationships that he has, not allowing him to think for himself, even if it says, if his answer to something is no, and let him deal with the repercussions of that. And even if it means saying, learn to fend for yourself. So let me just back up with my son. When we had that big old blowout on Christmas Eve in the middle of the casino, because we were getting ready to go eat our Christmas dinner with his mother-in-law and my other son, and we had this big screaming match in the middle of the casino, and we both walked away from that. I was done, but I had to go and look at some things about me, right? I had to study the Bible and realize that you're out of order. He had to study some things and say, Mom's out of order, but I was disrespectful, right? But I can't speak for him. I don't know what part of that journey he went to, but I will tell you this: when we reconciled, he was a man. He at this point, he got married to this woman and was raising his sons. He got a job because he was in his 20s and wasn't working. Every time he needed money, he was calling me and asking me for money. And even as I'm going to grow up, I'm treating him like a kid, because when you treat a man like a boy, then you have control, right? So even as I'm saying, grow up, I'm in control. If I control your money, then I can dictate what you should and should not do. And so there's so many nuances that go into that, that I put it in a book. So I sent a copy of the book to you, and the title of the book is called Take Your Pants Off at the Door.
Take your pants off at the door.
Take your pants off at the door. From Boss Chick to Divine Order. And it's for Christian women. It's a faith-based book. It uses a lot of scriptural references. And one of the relationships that I talk about in there is the relationship of a mother with her son. But I also talk about why is it that so many successful Black women are single? Some of that same attitude and masculine energy that you bring into your relationship with your son is the same relationship that you bring into your relationship with your significant other. And two men can't live in a house together. So if you're the man and he's the man, it's going to be a fight physically, or somebody's going to have to get out that house. And so this is teaching women how to walk into their divine femininity by tapping into the divine order of God. We cannot say we're Christians and walk out of order and still think we're going to be blessed.
Yes, that is exactly right. Take your pants off at the door. That's great. So, okay, so if someone wanted to, let's say this, if somebody wanted to get that book, they can go to your website, MadonnaShannon.com.
They can. And also if they go to my Stand store, I put the link in the chat. They can go and look at all the products that I offer there. And whether it's AI, whether it's tapping into business tools, all of that's there. And some of the classes that I offer, they'll be able to find those as well.
Okay. I just put it in the chat.
I see it.
Yeah. And it's going to be there in a minute. All right. So Patty Cake said, wow, so true. And a lot of single moms are afraid of being alone when they grow old, so they hold on. And that's a dynamic that I never thought about, not being a woman, of course.
Right.
But I never thought about that. My goal for my sons, and I have two sons, is to see them leave the nest, to see them start their own pods and families so that I can visit. And that's my goal. I don't want to hold them. And I guess I'm guessing it's innate for a dad to feel that way, because I don't feel like they need to stay with me all the time, and they don't feel that way. But it's kind of like a bird. When a mama bird makes a nest, even animals do this. She makes the nest only big enough for the most 4 eggs.
Right.
When the eggs get too small for the chicks, they bust out of the eggs, which means the nest is getting full. Right. And the more they grow, the more crowded it is. And so somebody's either going to fly away or fall and die.
That's right.
So that's, even animals have that mentality, because she can easily make a nest to fit her 8 eggs and everybody be comfortable. But no, she makes it small on purpose to make them fly out of the nest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why can't humans do that? I don't
I think it's about control. The animal kingdom understands that there is order. So that's why the book talks about divine order. Mm-hmm. And without order, you have chaos. Yes. And, I really want to address this for some of the men in your audience, since it's called the man cave. Mm-hmm. And also to talk to women too. The same attitude that we bring with our sons to control them is the same attitude we bring into relationships, especially with Black men. And so then we wonder why they want to go and be with white women.
Oh, can you repeat that? Just there's some dude in the back that was not listening.
Okay. So, the same attitude that we bring in with our Black sons is sometimes what we bring into our relationships with our Black men. And then we wonder why they go to white women. Now, let me just say to the brothers, first and foremost, I have worked in corporate America all my life. And I was raised, usually I was the token Black person in the all white school. So the one thing I learned about white women that a lot of Black men don't understand is that, they're good because they are submissive, but you have to not confuse manipulation with submissiveness.
Yeah.
And sometimes, those tears, I think it was, he was a talk show host. You may know who I'm talking about. He was having some discourse with one of the women that he started dating. He left his Black wife to be with this woman. And they were having an argument on their podcast, and then he just shut it down. And so later on, a friend of his asked him on the air, like, why did you shut it down? You were winning the argument. But what happened was the woman started crying. Mm-hmm. And when she cried, now this is what he said about his girlfriend. He said, when white women cry, Black men get hurt. So I had to shut that down. And so, Black women are not perfect. We're talking about some of our imperfections here on this show, but I don't think you can throw away a whole body of women because you encountered systems or people or dysfunction, right? Just like Black women want and need to build Black men up, Black men need to do the same. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's something to be said when someone says, because this color skinned woman is this, and I'm gonna go over here to be with another woman. I think there's something you have to look at under yourself in yourselves that says, am I a builder or am I a destroyer? Because builders build, right? When a builder goes, I'm a real estate agent, so I'm going to talk in real estate language. When a builder comes in, he takes down everything in that land, but then he builds it up properly. And sometimes you have to go in where there's destruction or a foundation that's faulty and build it up. But you can't build something up if you're not functional yourself.
Yes.
And so I think we really need to have these types of conversations in the Black community to understand that what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yes.
And some of that dysfunction starts in the home. If young boys saw dysfunction in their own home, and then they see a woman with some of those same traits as their mother, where they're being controlled, manipulated, they're told that they don't have a voice, and sometimes they don't want to stay in that situation and go outside, then maybe you need therapy. Like, that's just real. Maybe you need therapy. So we're talking about help for just the mothers and Black women as a whole who emasculate men, starting with their own children. But we're also talking about men who have been emasculated. Just because that has happened, maybe you need therapy to deal with the fact that you secretly hate your mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know when I say that, secretly hate your mother, people like, I don't hate my mother, but maybe you do.
Yeah.
And if you're really real about it, then that's where we get to the place where we can help one another.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. So I got your take on mother to mother. So you would, I heard what you said, would you talking to a mother who helicopters her son.
Right.
I heard what you said to the son who has
Right.
Been emasculated. There's a third person here that's injured that
Okay.
needs to be ministered to as well, and that
Okay.
is the dad. The
Yes.
dad who was told, you can't, I'm not gonna let you see your children.
That's right.
And or she's been told that your dad, you don't need your dad, and all of that stuff. And this frustrated man, and there's two parts of this too. There's a frustrated man who's been trying to get to his kids the whole time, and then there's this dormant dude who just let it lie and just let everything just wash over. So what would you say as a woman to the man who's trying to get to his kids and this woman won't let him see them?
You know what, that's a little complicated because there's a lot of things that go along with that, right? I know men who are saying, I don't want to deal with my kid because I don't want to deal with the mother. And usually those men are dealing with, they may have another woman in their life who helps it to be complicated, right? So it all goes back to the woman. I'm not blaming the women for everything, right?
Yeah, right.
But we do have a lot more control of some of these circumstances.
Yes.
Than we think. And so I think if a Black woman is there, and I do this, I was doing this prayer call called Shall We Pray? And I said, if you are a Black mother or a mother, period, and you don't let that man have a relationship with his son because you haven't let go of the anger that you feel, then again, I go back to you need prayer and you need therapy. But I think more than that, remember, we talked about the village. I think it takes the village to tell people you're wrong.
Yes.
And we don't do that. As a Black community, we say, we don't want to get involved. But here's what the Bible says, right? So when we look at Jeremiah, God said, if I tell you to say a thing and you say it, then their blood's not on your hand and you save their soul if they're obedient, right? But if I tell you to say a thing and you don't say it, then their blood is on your hand and their soul is condemned. So as a people, when we see wrong, we have to say this is wrong. And if we do not begin to do that, then we're going to see the detriment and the death of our people and us as a body of people as a whole.
Yes.
And I'll give you an example to what I mean by that. When my sons were younger, one of my sons, I won't say which one, but he was dating two girls at the same time, and he would bring them over to the house, and they were his girlfriends. And so, and my other son, he laughs, right, when they tell this story. But my oldest son came home one day, and he said, he walked into the house, and I had both the girls sitting on the sofa. And
they came over at the same time.
No, I made them come over together. Like I called them and said, come over.
Okay.
So when he and his brother got home from school and he walked in, both those girls were sitting on the sofa. And I said, you never take away someone's choice.
Yeah.
Choose. And so he was mad and angry with me for months, but I'm his mother. So what is he going to do? Like move out? You're 16. You can't move out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we're going to deal with this. And I say this to say sometimes, and I'm not beating up moms, but I think we need to use our powers for good and not evil. Because I'll tell you what, my son and I talk about it now. He said, Mom, you know what that taught me? In a moment, I was angry with you for a long time. He said, but I realized when you tell the truth, most women are going to deal with you anyway. They just want to know. And so I think, so getting back to your original question, what do you say to those women? I say to other women around them, family members, aunts, uncles, grandmothers, you need to tell them you're wrong.
Yes.
You're wrong for that. And he needs to have a relationship with his, and provided he's not a child molester or a beater or, all those kind of things, right? Provided all those things are not there. You are wrong. And I think as Black men, when they see a man who is not stepping up and fathering his children, but he'll go into a house and father 10 other children that are not his, then Black men need to say, bruh, you're wrong.
Yes,
like
exactly.
That's your seed, and you need to handle your business. If that means you have to go to court, if that means you have to get a mediator involved, that's what you need to do. And I think if we started making it difficult for people to hide under the radar and do things that are unacceptable, it would become less acceptable.
Exactly. You hit something that's so important, because I'm not in a situation where I'm trying to get my kids away from a mother, but even in relationship situations, a man's reputation, good reputation, depends on how good he treats this woman among her family. So in other words, if we get into a little situation and we break up, the whole family jumps on the guy because that's their daughter, that's their niece, that's their cousin. And it's like, wait, if you subscribe to the village thing that you're saying, they how she is.
That's right.
It's like, why are you jumping on this man when she's a manipulator? She talks too much. If she talks too much, you should tell her to stop talking so much. That just happened to me. I got out of a relationship. I was telling you this off the air.
Yeah, you did.
Got out of a relationship, and because I was being accused of cheating all the time because she couldn't get over a previous guy cheating on her. And I had to deal with the shadow of that. So I just broke it off. And man, the onslaught of hate that came from everybody else. It's like, wait a minute now. I need you guys to tell her, we know you.
That's right.
We know that you talk too much. And we know that you're insecure. So let's not make all of us enemies. It kind of goes back to that manipulation thing that I really hate. It's like, why manipulate? It's like you get hurt and I want comfort, so I'm going to get a posse and we're all going after you.
That's right.
It's misinformation. And it's just terrible like that.
It is terrible. So I want to say this because I speak a lot to Christians. The Bible is a sword. It's not a gun. Right. Yeah. And so the difference between a sword and a gun is, with a sword, you can precisely cut. And so I'm not telling people to go out with a gun and just shoot everybody because you don't have all the information.
Yes.
Right. But the reality is, some of us need to use our sword a little bit more wisely.
Yes.
And help people identify the fact that you may have a relationship with God. But, even the Bible says, if you speak in tongues of angels and have not love, then you're just a clanging bell or a tinkling symbol. And so what does that mean? If you don't love a person enough to tell them you're wrong, or you need therapy, or you need help, then you really don't love them. Because love is not gonna, no matter how mad I am at you, if I see you getting ready to walk in front of a freight train, if I ever had love for you, then I'm gonna say, hey, that freight train is coming. And so I bring it back to the village. It is time for us to be honest with one another and to understand that it's time for us to be our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper and hold people accountable.
Yes. Now, do you find that it is a different level of understanding for the new generation? Because the new generation, I work with a lot of young guys, and they don't subscribe to the way I think. And the way I think is old school, and you had to go to a library and check out a book and bring it home and take it back. When they can use AI, they can just go to their phones and get whatever information they need. It's so easy. But the work ethic is not growing. So when they get into relationships and they have these children that they can't get to, or the mother's helicoptering that, is it a different kind of learning for them? Do they need to, is it another way of you can get in there, or is it just the same?
I think it's just, it's relationship, right? You can't talk to somebody about fixing something until they know you care about them. And I think so many of us are trying to dictate to people, and we've not built a relationship first. Because I can guarantee once you build relationship, then it opens a person up so that you do have a voice in their lives. And so I'll say, when I lived in Dallas, before my girlfriends and I decided to move together and help one another out, and I put my son in a Big Brothers Big Sisters program, and we lived on North Dallas side. And so I kept trying to get a mentor for him, and I was not able to get a mentor for him. There were no Black men that stepped up in that 8-month period that they were looking for a mentor to mentor them. And let me just say this, there's some men I think would be more helpful if women would step back and let their man help in other areas and communities than just their own. Just because a man is going out and he's coaching a football team, or he's a big brother or big sister, does not mean he's about to go hook up with that kid's mother. And I think there's so many times that our insecurities limits the men that we're with, and it's unacceptable. And until we get a realization that everybody doesn't want your man, but if we are going to be a village, that means, let's just take it from the village. If you go back to Africa, when the husbands went off to war, the women helped each other, and the men who stayed behind helped all the women in the community. Nobody left a message. The husbands didn't leave and say, hey, stay away from, TP number 6 because my wife is in there. Right? They all helped one another. And so that means if I trust you and love you, then I need to let you be the man that God has called you to be. And if I'm not able to do this, and let me just say this to the brothers, sometimes just because she is 26, 36, 24 and is a brick house, it does not mean that you get to keep her. And sometimes men are in relationships where they are beaten up and not trusted, not because of any other reason, that you chose wrong. And so sometimes you choose wrong, and you have to say, I made a mistake, and it's time for me to walk away. You're not in your destiny if you have to keep going back to say, I'm not doing anything with somebody, because they should be so busy as you're helping you get to your next level, that they don't have time to be and helping them get to their next level. That they don't have to worry that you're creeping down to house number 5 to hook up with the lady with the 4 kids who you helped play baseball. You know what I'm saying? And that's just real. Those are conversations our community need to have so that we could go to our next level, because this petty stuff that we're doing is just unacceptable.
And I think you're so right. And like I was telling you before, I have a young child that I mentor. Great kid. He's 6 years old. He is the best kid ever. But I expect to wash out a little bit of babiness out of him. When he falls on the ground, he looks up to me like, pick me up. And it's like, no, get up. Come on, let's get up.
Let's get up.
But when you connect to a man that does not have that, you're going to go right back to that 6-year-old inside of that man. That's where you're going to start, at his hurting point.
That's
and
right.
Then you got to get him out of that hurting point and help him grow to 7 and 8 and 9. And it's a process, because I knew where my dad was at any time. I didn't grow up in the same house with him, and he wasn't like really, really instrumental like I needed him to.
That's right.
But what I did was I pieced me in the 70s. We didn't have all this stuff, but I pieced a mentor together. I like the way he treats his wife. I like the way he does business. I like the way he's articulate. I like the way this guy is a gentleman,
right?
And I put all those aspects in one guy, and I copied it. And then I sprinkled in all the stuff my mother said that women like. They like for you to open doors. They like for you to, tell them that they're beautiful and all that. I sprinkled in and made me this AI of the 70s person that I emulated. Now, that's just me doing that. That's just how I got around it. But I don't know if that's what everyone does. And I thank God that I'm listening to a lady say this, because I'm among guys all the time. and we talk about this barbershop stuff, about how this woman won't do this, and she keeps getting her son out of jail, and he keeps going back. We talk about it in the barbershop, but to hear a lady say it is so refreshing. So I thank you for that. EW said this a while back. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to say I don't want to beat up women, right? That's not what I'm trying to do.
Right.
But if we look at what our role and our position is as women, we are there to help meet the need of the family, of our husband and our significant other. So, I want to say two things because I don't want anyone to think that she's just beating up on women. First of all, we have to get back in alignment, right? Sometimes all of the trauma that Black women bring is because, just like men, we align with the wrong people and the wrong men, bad relationships, childhood trauma, whatever you've gone through, you have to let that go. There has to be healing in that journey, and you have to recognize there's a problem. If you keep meeting the same man, then maybe the fact of the matter isn't it's the man that you keep attracting something, because whatever is broken in you is attracting like a magnet what's broken in him.
Yeah.
And that's on both sides, right?
Yeah, both sides.
So healing has to take place. But the other thing I really want to point out, and this is something I say all the time to my friends and family, if we are Christians, then we have to trust God to lead us and to hear him. But at the heart of our everything, our misalignment, our decimation of our families and all that stuff, at the heart of that is disobedience.
Yes.
It's disobedience.
Yes.
And so I'll just tell this story, and I really want to stress this to really understand, it has been a journey for myself. I don't say all the stuff that I say from a place of I'm so great, but it's because I looked at the mistakes I made and I can go, wow. So I'll say this, you at the beginning of this, you talked about all the gifts, talents, and abilities and the businesses that I have, and I do a lot, right? And on top of that, I see things that other people don't see, and I'm pretty smart. I don't say that braggadociously. I just say it's just factual. And so, I think I'm smarter than most people. And that's true. So when you get in a relationship with somebody and you think you're smarter than them, already you have diminished the conversation aspect, right? Yeah. And so that takes you have to, if you think you're the smartest person in your circle, you have to widen your circle. Yeah. But then so why do I say all that? So when my ex-husband and I got divorced, there was some domestic violence involved in that, and of course I was really traumatized and hurt, and had to heal from that situation. Never thought I would find myself in that situation, but I realized two things. Number one, a lot of times, and this is why I say take your pants off at the door, and why women have to walk in their femininity, because if you keep on wearing those pants and you approach a man like a man, you might get hit like a man. And no one wants to hear that, right? Because that's not what you go in court and say, like, I got in his face and I told him XYZ and he hit me, because we don't tell that part of the story. Right. And then the other part is when my ex-husband and I separated, I packed up his boxes. He didn't get to come back and pack up his boxes. I packed them up. And when I packed them up, I made a mistake and packed up his prayer journal, because he was a man of God. He was a Christian. He was a believer just as I was. And so after about a year, after I had gone through therapy and got healed, I opened up those boxes and I realized I had his prayer journal. And as I was doing that, God told me, open up your prayer journals and let's compare. Here's what I saw in this book. It wrecked me. It made me understand that we are the masters of our own destiny, and disobedience will cause us to be in destruction. So as I opened up his prayer journal, I saw that there were some days when he was like, God, help me love my wife. Like sometimes her tongue just gets on my nerves and I don't understand. And on that same day, I would look in mine and I was like, oh, Lord, I just cannot respect him. I think he's dumb. Like, what's up? And for both of us, God will give us instructions. God might say to me, like, just don't say anything today. Like, rub his feet and make him something to eat and just be soft. And on his, he would say, bring her some flowers and just tell her how much you appreciate her and tell her you understand how hard and challenging it is sometimes. And on those days that we did that, which we're both praying, right? Because if God is God, he knows my heart, he knows his heart. He's rooting for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you marry the wrong person, the Bible says the marriage bed is undefiled. God is going to rally for you if you're married, because he does not break covenant. Like God is not going to send you a wife if you already have a wife. God's not going to send you a husband if you already have a husband.
Yes.
Even if that husband is your daughter, it is your son, and that wife is your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
We can't make idols of our children, right? But anyway, I digress. Mm-hmm. And so as I read that, man, I'm just going through this journal, and I saw on days that he did what God told him, and I did what God told me to do. Like, we would come back and be like, oh my God, it was so amazing. But on those days where we just let ego and pride get in the way, I'm not doing that. We came back and it was a mess. And so the day before we had our first and only physical altercation in our relationship that ended our marriage, God had told both of us in our journal just to go away on a trip, away from our kids, away from family, and just to invest time in each other. But I was like, I don't want to go anywhere with him. And he was like, I don't want to go anywhere in her. And then the next day we had an altercation and our marriage was destroyed. So warning always comes before destruction. And so I push all of us to understand that if you're asking God for something and he gives you a set of instructions, whether it's about your children, whether it's about your family, whether it's telling somebody in your family something, obey. Because that warning may be the only thing that keeps you from being destroyed or someone else being destroyed.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I'm gonna make a soundbite of that part of the show, because that nugget right there was fire. Now let me ask you this, and if you said this before, I think it's worth repeating.
Okay.
There are women on here in our last this hour has flown by, but there's women on here who's going to be really specific.
Okay.
They're going to say, Miss Madonna, what do you mean divorce? Divine divorce for me when it comes to my son. And I know you hit on it, but in your synopsis, how do you tell them what to do in divorcing your son?
So before I do that, let me just give you a quick definition. So let me pull it up, because I was thinking you were going to ask me this. Okay, so I went to my best friend, which is ChatGPT, right? And so ChatGPT says divorce is a legal dissolution of a marriage by a court or other competent authority. It marks the official end of a union, meaning that both parties are no longer legally bound as husband and wife. But beyond the legal definition, divorce is the formal recognition that two people can no longer live in covenant or agreement as life partners. Okay. So we enter into covenant. When I say divorce your parent, I'm saying you have to dissolve the legal relationship that you have entered into, this covenant relationship with your children that is not biblical, where you put yourself first in that relationship to the extent that any and everything is circumstantial, where no one else can come in the middle of that relationship. Because the two of you are ride or die together.
Yes.
No matter good or bad. That's why Tupac could say, even though you were a crack fiend, mama, you were still a black queen. No, she was a crack fiend. Sons don't have to look at their mother's mistakes and say, to the extent of all else, I'm just going to still ride or die with her. That's why they're dysfunctional. That's why a lot of men are operating in a place of dysfunction where they can't really connect to anybody else, because they're already connected. And so when I say that, you have to emotionally. So when I got divorced, I had to emotionally, we went legally and dissolved that marriage, but I had to emotionally disconnect, which means, when I go through my day and I would typically call my husband and say, oh, let me tell you what happened. You're not my best friend anymore. I'm not calling you. I'm not calling you to ask you for money, or you're not calling me to tell me I'm bringing groceries home. Like, there has to be not just a legal. And when I say legal, you have to go into the courts of heaven and say, God, help me to sever this contract that I have made in the spirit with my child.
Yes.
And I know that sounds crazy, but once you take yourself out of the order, right? The divine order of God, then you have entered into a legal contract with your son and the devil. Like, we don't want to talk about that. And which means it gives the devil the right to affect that relationship. And it has to be destroyed by God through the legal dissolution of that relationship.
Yes. And I can see exactly what you're talking about. And in a scenario where a guy loves his mom so much that she can come over anytime. And, you know, it's in the wife or girlfriend. It's like, well, why don't your mom call? Well, that's my mama. And see, that has no place in their relationship.
It doesn't. And I'll tell you, so I was dating this guy, amazing guy. We became business partners, but everywhere we went, his mother came with us. And I'm gonna tell you, it freaked me out because one night I went to his house, and you know, so when I go over there, normally I sit and I talk to her, and you know, he was inside taking a shower, and she and I started watching a movie together, and he came out in his underwear. And his mom said, come watch this movie with us. And he sat in between his mother and I in his drawers.
What?
And watched a movie. And mom was on one side and I was on another side. And I was just like, Lord Jesus, please let me never do that to my son. And then there was other things that I saw him do that made me say, this reinforced that they're married. And I said to him, I said, you're married to your mother. He was like, I made a vow. Understand this. A marriage is a vow.
Yes.
He made a vow. He said, I made a vow to my mother that I would always take care of her. Because when my father left her, she made me understand that I was supposed to be the man of the house. And so it usurped. This man is 50 years old now, and he has never been married. He's never had a serious relationship because his mother is sitting on the throne, not just in his house, but on his heart. There's no room for anyone else.
Yes.
And I remember, I think the final straw, there were many final straws where I was just like, we could be friends, but that's it. But he was so excited because he had just gotten a bonus from work. He was like, I'm going to buy me a car. He had the car he was going to buy laid out. And so that day, later on that night, when I called him, I was like, did you get your car? And he said, I bought my mom a car. And I was like, why? He said, because I took my mom to the car dealership and she made me feel guilty because she wanted a new car. He never got that new car. That to me is a person who is so bound by the trauma that his father took him through, that he can't even see that what she's done is ensnared him in a trap that was never his to be in the first place. Right.
Wow. I never knew it went that deep. I knew how it connected to me, but sitting between my mama and my girlfriend in my drawers ain't never gonna happen because it's crazy. I couldn't even. Before we go, Miss Patty Cake says some don't understand what it means to honor their parents versus being enmeshed with their parents. And that's true. Yeah. Miss Madonna Shannon, listen, I need to have a part 2.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get to too many of my questions because I was talking about my own stuff. Miss Madonna Shannon, business services and consulting. Is there a website for that?
It is. It's just madonnashannon.com.
Okay. I'm gonna put that back on the screen. And that's where you can find the book. And you got new music coming out.
I do. It's called Guerrilla Warfare. It's a song that I wrote. I wrote the song, but I used AI to produce it. So I teach people how to use AI tools. Listen, I just want to say this as an aside. AI, if you're a visionary and you're going, God, I don't know how to do stuff, AI, the tools that they have in AI now will allow you to do that. So I've always written music and poetry, but to be able to take my songs and put it in an app and have somebody sing the words to something I've written, AI is changing how we envision our lives. And so we have to tap into that, because if we don't, we're going to be left behind.
Yes. And we're going to have to, part 2, let's talk about AI.
Okay.
From your perspective and from my old school perspective. Miss Madonna Shannon, I'm so glad that I met you. Shout out to Serena. And we are, I'm just really excited about hearing this and broadcasting it out because it's definitely needed in our community. Needed in our community. So is there anything else you want to tell my people before we get off the air, ma'am?
Listen, if it struck you, if something I said hit you hard, go pray about it. Because it's time for us to get it right with God. It's time.
Yes. And with that, y'all, I guess y'all heard that. Oh, I wanted to say this too in this last 1 minute. I never thought that you were beating up on women. I just thought that this is information that's not talked about.
That's
like
right.
The village. Nobody tells the woman, oh, we know you got a big mouth. Nobody says that. We just go with the flow. And it may look like beating up on women. It's just we're filling the glass that's never full. Never get attention. We getting that glass in the back of the cupboard and using that now. So if that's more attention on the women, then so be it. But thank you so much, ma'am, for coming on the show. Next week, we might take a break. We might not. Depends on if this person calls me back. But we want to let you guys know that the Man Cave is coming on. It might come on twice next week. Well, I'll let you know. Until then, be nice to people because people need to be nice and kind, especially that we are in this kind of a situation. And happy 100th birthday to Brother Malcolm this year. This year, Brother Malcolm turned 100 years old. Oh, wow. Happy heavenly, sir. Until then, take a seat in the Man Cave and be comfortable. Next week.